like a very beautiful, colorful wheel that actually represents something. Okay, so this week we are looking at and talking about working with the chromatic scale. And these are the building blocks of harmony and melody in Western music. Okay, so there are other types of scales in other traditions. And actually, this scale took a long time in Western culture to become really solidified in what it was. So it really became more solidified with well temperament in the 17th century. Before then, you did have these note names and what they were understood to be, but it was not as versatile as it is now. So there was an evolution from well temperament to increasingly more equal temperaments. And then finally, in the late 18th century, an accurate way of getting equal temperament was created. And that is the system of tuning that we use now for all of our 12 notes in the chromatic scale. Okay. And there were a lot of different systems tried before it was settled on the chromatic scale, and it was sort of an evolutionary process that created everyone coming to the chromatic scale because they found it to be the most useful, the most versatile, without being overly complex way of creating music. With this chromatic scale, we're able to get it onto a keyboard instrument where, so taking a look at this, you have C right there, and that C is right there. The C sharp or D flat is right here. Let me do this. The D is right there. D sharp or E flat is right there. The E is right there. Now imagine if we had to have separate keys for a C sharp and a D flat and a D sharp and an E flat. And that's how they were actually playing music before this chromatic scale and equal temperament was being used. Yeah, and we'll talk about that. There is a schedule change. We'll talk about that here in a second. So there was a change in how things were used where we melded C sharp and D flat into one note that is played or sung as that one note, or D sharp or E flat as that one note. And we call this enharmonic spelling of the notes. What it means is it's the same note. You play it the exact same way. If I were playing it on the guitar, I'd play a C sharp the same as I'd play a D flat. If I'm playing on a clarinet, I'd play the C sharp the exact same as I play a D flat. Doesn't matter the instrument, I play it the exact same way. The only exception to that is where you're able to get more accurate tuning for any particular key on a cappella groups and maybe an orchestra with violins and those string instruments without frets. There is the possibility of a bit more accurate tuning for those instruments. And also other wind instruments, you can kind of bend the pitch up and down a little bit. But if we're talking about a piano or a guitar, it's really, this is the only sort of tuning equal temperament that we're able to get. And on those other instruments, it is thought of as those equal, those enharmonic notes, the C sharp or the D flat. It's thought of as the same note, only a little higher or a little lower to make it sound just that much better. Okay, and those are really advanced techniques. And I'm letting you know about it so that you are aware of it, but you don't need to like memorize it. I'm not going to test you or quiz you on that part of it. Okay. What I will quiz you and test you on is your knowledge of these 12 notes. So we have C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A, A sharp, and B. Okay, and once we get to B, we go higher to the next C. Okay, so if I take a look at it on my rainbow colored piano, we have C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, start over at C again. Okay, and that process, this pattern of these letter names and notes continues all the way up and down the entire scale. So let's get to a piano. Let me share my sound so you can hear it. Okay, here is starting on the C3 that it was showing on that keyboard. Okay, and I play it all the way up to C6. We can go down below the C3. Okay, so those specific notes, that's all the notes in the chromatic scale. And when we play a song, we select parts of these notes in specific patterns to create the sounds that we hear and that we are familiar with, right? Because you don't normally hear, let me show you a song that's just on the chromatic scale. Okay, and if we're just playing on the chromatic scale, it sounds kind of aimless, right? If I start creating more skips between the notes, then it actually starts to not sound like the chromatic scale anymore, and we get other sorts of patterns. So here are the common patterns that we use. So here is a major scale. This one is centered on C being the first note. And this is our major scale. So this is the first pattern we're learning about. The major scale, and how it goes is you skip one of the chromatic notes and go to the next one. Skip one, next one, and then you don't skip. So it goes note, skip, skip, don't skip. Skip, 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 don't skip. Okay, and that specific pattern is what turns it into a major scale. And we can start this major scale on any note that we want. So if we started on a D, then we have D, skip, skip, and notice that makes this an F sharp, which would be that black key right there. Don't skip, which lands us back on a white key. Skip, white key, skip, then skip again to get on another black key for the C sharp, and then we end on a D. So let's listen to that. I'll play in both C and D on a major scale and listen to how they sound very similar. Okay, so here is C. Okay, so you hear how those, let's see, it's that pattern. Okay, readjusting your ears. Now here's the D. Listen to how it's similar to where that C was. Okay, do you hear that pattern of the notes? Let me make it more explicit with a song. So for our season that we are in right now, here's a classic song, Joy to the World. Okay, and if you notice, that song is just a descending major scale. C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. Okay, now I'm going to switch it up into the key of D. Same major scale, selecting a few different options from the chromatic scale with our same pattern of skips. Okay, you hear that it's the same song, it's just a little bit higher. Okay, so that is part of the versatility of this chromatic scale. We're able to move notes up or down, and that's able to get that's able to let us match up with anyone's voice wherever their voice lands and help them out with and help them out with that. So, and match up with them, matching up with the voice. All right, so let's listen to here some different options. So here is the harmonic minor scale. Notice instead of an E, we have an E flat, and instead of an A, we have an A flat versus the major. Those are the only two that change. The E goes to an E flat right there, and the A goes to an A flat. All right, and here is what it sounds like. Right, and that's way different than the major scale, right? So here's me making up a song with this minor scale. Okay, so that's that harmonic minor sound. And you can tell it's a lot different sort of sound than we normally listen to. Let's do one more, the blues scale. Okay, this one I'm not going to go through. You can see it on this chromatic wheel, what it looks like with that. But here's what it sounds like. Okay, and if I were to improvise a song on it, you're going to hear this bluesy sound. I lost my house. Oh, why did it burn? Okay, that's the blues. And it is selecting a different set of those chromatic notes. Okay, that's the important thing to realize with this. It's selecting just a few of those chromatic notes to turn it into a different sort of sound and a different vocabulary that you're using in the musical language. Okay. So those are examples of using this chromatic scale in different sorts of sounds. Okay, so I can take these chromatic notes, and just by selecting a few of them, I can turn it into another song. So here's another example of another song bit. Okay. Yes, Mario. Yeah, thank you for recognizing that one is Mario. Okay, and notice most of that was on the white keys, but there was one very important part that uses this E flat right there. Okay, and so in order to get to these other sorts of sounds, other sorts of songs that we want to be able to play, and listen to it here, we need to be able to access these chromatic notes. Okay, so let's take a look at what this looks like on the staff. Okay, so in order to talk about our chromatic notes, we have sharps or flats. I have on this particular document both the bass clef and the treble clef. The bass clef are the lower notes on the piano, the treble clef are the higher notes. For right now, we are just looking at the treble clef. So the treble clef, we have our C4 right there. Notice that this has a natural sign in front of it. If the natural sign is in front of it, then it's just the plain old C. Then on the next chromatic step up, we call these half steps. So on the next step up, it's a C sharp or a D flat. If it's a C sharp, it's written this way. If it's a D flat, it's written that way. And on both of those, you play it on that one key. C sharp or D flat, doesn't matter which one it is. You play it on that one single black key. Right? Or if I show you on this one single black key, that black key right there is the one that you would play it on. And that same thing happens for all the other sharp or flat note names. Okay, so D sharp or E flat, you'd play it on the same exact key on the piano. And I know the yellow is hard to see on this, but I was kind of committed to it from the color wheel already. We have a D natural right there, E natural, F natural, and then we have these chromatic notes again, F sharp or G flat. Okay. There, like that. All right, F sharp or G flat. Then we have G, G sharp or A flat. Remember, these are the exact same note on the piano keyboard. Rachel, are a G flat and A flat played on the exact same key on the piano keyboard? Yes. Okay, and that's what we want to learn about this. Okay, these are played on the exact same key on the piano keyboard. And then we have the A, that one's just a white key. Then our black keys, it's an A flat or sorry, A sharp or B flat. Exact same key on the piano keyboard, and then a B natural. So notice on the coloring of this, and I will post this where everyone can see it. It's not posted quite yet, but I will get it up where everyone can see it. On the coloring for this, the coloring also shows you it's the exact same note. And the coloring on this matches up with the colors that we have here. Let's make it where you can see more. Okay, so we have the red, we have the reddish orangey color, then more orange on that D, then a yellow on the D sharp or E flat. Then the E is that lime green, then a brighter green for the F, and then F sharp and G flat. That one is like a dark forest green sort of color. Okay, so each of these represent a different note. This is how they are written on the staff. And it's using that repeating pattern. On the piano keyboard, this is important to recognize. On the piano keyboard, you have the sets of 2 black keys and 3 black keys. 2 black keys, 3 black keys. That goes along with this repeating pattern of 12 pitches. C, C sharp, D, D sharp, etc. Okay, it's this repeating pattern, and the black keys happen in the exact same spots. The white keys happen in the exact same spots compared to the black keys. If it is a C sharp, if it's a C, it's always right below the 2 black keys. Okay, that is that pattern of repeating 12 that we see all over the place on the keyboard and in our notes as they are written and on this chromatic wheel. This chromatic wheel is just taking the chromatic notes and showing you these are the 12 options for your notes. Okay, and that repeats up and down. All right, So what does this mean on your assignment? I've talked about a whole lot of stuff, most of it not very practical yet. So what do I want you to do? I want you guys to create your own color chromatic wheel. Select your own colors for it. It doesn't need to be the same as mine. You could take the same concept as mine, but it shouldn't be exactly like mine. So what I did was I took the colors of the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and turned it into a color wheel that we could see. Okay. So you're going to make a chromatic wheel, color it your own colors, and you're going to create your own keyboard. We want it from, so covering 2 octaves, so from C3 to C5, or from C4 to C6. Okay. That means 2 sets of 12 plus 1 more. Okay. So 2 sets of 12 plus 1 more on your piano keyboard.